Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have an excellent game to share with you from round 2 of the 2025 FIDE World Cup. This was played November 5th on the white end Pentala Harikrishna playing against Arseniy Nesterov. Alright, this is game 2 of 2 classical time controls, a 29 move game out of the Petrov's defense. Alright, sharp line coming up here with d4, knight takes e, d takes e, and this pressure now on f2. White's reaction, queen d5. Pressure on 2 points. Black's response is to take on f2 with check. Now if the knight captures on f2, the bishop falls. Yes, the rook would fall, but eventually the knight will fall. And we will be looking at a 2 minor pieces versus rook imbalance. This position is winning for white. So black's play here is with bishop captures f2 check. King responds by keeping some pressure. And now f5. From here, knight c3 is played. This arrangement is just barely held together for black. If you try to disrupt it by capturing on f6 en passant, you are on the knight. This may be appealing at first glance, but here's why it's not working out for white. The knight would recapture. There's no time to take the bishop. The queen is hanging. And this idea to counterpunch, landing a check, here's the thing. With the queen on e5, the bishop on f2 is indirectly defended. There's knight g4 there with the fork. It says best is knight g5 followed by knight e4. Prefers black there, reads around minus 0.6. All right. White's decision in this game is more development. From here, c6 is played. If knight captures knight, this is not a good line, really, for black. Yes, you've destroyed the queenside structure, but with this position type, it's more about piece play. Bishop now has to find a new home, and it says best is to hang out on this diagonal. Not fun there. Bishop h4, king d1, it prefers white. Reads around plus 0.8. Good square coming up for the light square bishop. Excellent diagonal. Restriction on the queen, has to watch over that bishop on h4. How is the king getting castled there? I was a little curious about the bishop going to a different diagonal. This one here is going to sting. You could try to wiggle out of this situation, but you won't wiggle for long. Queen c7, we have checkmate, and bishop c7, the queen doesn't have c7 anymore. She's toast. My point, capturing on c3, not an attractive line. We have instead c6. From here, white goes for a queen sacrifice with knight captures knight. Pawn captures queen. Knight d6 check. Octopus knight. And now king captures bishop. We're 10 moves in. I have some things to share here. First of all, this queen sacrifice line has been seen before. According to the Chess Masters database, there are a handful of games in here with this line, first played in 1987. What we're looking at is an octopus knight and dark square bishop versus queen. Black has an extra pawn, not the greatest pawns here on the d file. This is not the type of queen sacrifice you'll typically find in a tactics book. You know, the ones where you sacrifice the queen and then 1, 2, maybe 3 moves later you say checkmate, things come to a closure, and that's that. This is a long-term positional piece sacrifice. I'm not sure what great calculation goes into these types of sacrifices. I believe this is more about weighting pieces properly, assessing the type of position we have here. What am I talking about? Is this a position that is very violent, wide open, more so under control? What value are we really assigning to this knight on d6? It is not a 3-point piece anymore. I'm not sure what value to assign the knight. I just know it is much more than 3. This is really the main piece that comes into focus here with this sacrifice. It's dominant on d6 and will remain dominant for the duration of this game. What is it doing? It controls a lot of light squares and it cannot be extracted from this d6 post. No black pawns can scare it away. It's only the knight that could maybe maneuver about at some point and challenge it, but that's a long ways off. As it stands now, it exerts pressure on the bishop, which places a restriction on one of the major pieces, and whatever piece is allocated to the defense of the bishop, that piece, its value decreases. It's not really a piece that thrives. Look at the squares it's controlling on the king side. Where's the king going? You're stepping up here. The king can't step up. How is this rook going to play a productive role as a result? The knight is dominant on both wings. One final note. White will find this position. This doesn't show up in the evaluation. The evaluation here, it says black is a tick better, but here's how white is better. White's better because there's value in this. White is better because it is easier for white to play. You're going to find comfortable, stable, active posts for your minor pieces. Bishop d3, bishop f4, knight defended, both knights defended, rooks defended. These rooks and bishops are just not going to really play in this game. White has great control here. In just a few moves from now, black is already going to be lost. Doesn't come up with a good enough plan. All right. Play continues here with bishop e3, d4. Pop quiz, how would you respond here? Pause the video if you'd like. Okay, white plays bishop f4. If you capture on d4, not a good idea. If you take with the knight, that runs into f4. And this is a problem. Bishop ready to fall next with check. Bishop restricted. Has to babysit the knight. You're going to be losing material here as white. Also, capturing with the bishop, allowing this knight for dark square bishop exchange, no good. In the end, there is this check on h4, and you have to step up now to babysit the knight. Not fun. Queen here, king in the center. No thanks. In this position, it's looking at these moves here. Okay, not a good idea to take on d4. We have instead bishop f4. Why not bishop g5 instead? Move the bishop and throw a punch. White knows the queen wants to move anyway. Let's not encourage it. Let's not put the bishop on a square where it could maybe be targeted quickly with h6, g5, who knows, maybe a timely g4. Flushing this knight back somewhere. There's instability there potentially for white. So f4 is the post. Queen b6. Computer says, rather than queen b6, to go with the following. It's looking at b5 right here, or after first including h6 and h4 holding up the g5 idea, then b5. Let's just look at this b5 move straight away and try to digest what's going on with this idea. For one, this bishop finally has a legal move. A square has opened up for the bishop. If play continued here with bishop d3, now it wants to play queen b6, with the idea to eventually play bishop b7. It doesn't like it straight away. It says e6 is very strong there. From here, it wants to play knight d8. So this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier about it being, somewhat easier for white to play. These moves being much more natural than b5, queen b6, and then finding this knight retreat, looking at this blockade, supporting next bishop b7. Not nearly as natural as the white moves. Okay, only after this knight move is it looking next at bishop b7. This is some top line path. Black doesn't come up with this. Does not play this b5 move. Is very quick to deploy the queen on b2, opposite the king. White's response, development. Nice stable square for the bishop. Rook's connected. Very healthy development for white. From here, knight e7 is played. If queen captures b2, it says top here a3. You rule out any ideas of knight b4 at some stage. I'll touch on a line shortly where knight b4 isn't good anyhow. Another detail I want to point out here with this line is that there's a queen trap nearby. Just making a sort of passing move here to illustrate. If queen takes b2, a3, and then h6, here's the queen trap. Rook coming over here, only safe square. Bishop can fall back, only safe square. And rook b5, the queen will fall shortly. Okay, grabbing the b pawn, pretty much insignificant pawn. Also, if we examine knight b4, trying to track this light square bishop, you can allow the bishop to be captured. So a healthy move here is to expand on the king side. And if we look at this particular exchange, note what is happening. The c file opens up, and this will almost certainly favor white. Pressure on it with a knight, and you can expect very soon a rook to be planted on the c file. This is very uncomfortable for black. This king on g3, nice and cozy, by the way. Knight is a fantastic defender for the king. Maybe if this queen could get to g4, it'll be a problem for white, but that's not happening. All right, my point, going for this line right here, where you trade knight for light square bishop and open up the c file, that's going to benefit white. We have here a knight reposition. Black is essentially just playing with these two pieces. White is playing with all minor pieces. The rooks will soon find a productive role as well. From here, we have a knight reposition. Knight e7. White anticipates the knight post. On d5, drops the bishop back. Knight d5 it is. Pop quiz. How would you capture on f5 in this position? You going with a knight or bishop? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, white captures on f5 with the bishop. Here's a way to let black off the hook. If you take on f5 with the knight, this is a window for black to now finally breathe with the queenside pieces. It says top is d6. D pawn can finally move. Yes, you take another pawn, but the bishop comes out and about. The rook has a few other legal moves. Okay, this is considered an equal position after that. White doesn't budge with the knight. Queenside remains restricted as a result. D pawn blockaded. It is bishop captures f5 in this game. What might keep a player from capturing on f5 is this follow-up discovered check, but it's just a check. Black in this game continues with knight e3. If we examine this discovered check, it goes nowhere. After king g3, now what? There isn't a consistent follow-up to this discovered check. Pawn takes pawn, the bishop is there to recapture if you'd like. So that doesn't really go anywhere. What we have instead is knight e3. Now the bishop falls back to d3. Black at this point spent about 14 minutes, decided on king e7 idea, activate the rook next. I believe another move or two that was being considered here was knight captures c2, or even knight g4 check. I want to touch on each. In the case of knight takes c2, you don't have to take the knight. If you take the knight, then there is d3 discovered check. The bishop will fall on c2 next. There is a counterpunch on e3, but after queen takes b2, the bishop is pinned. It will be won back. Here's the thing. If the knight takes the pawn on c2 like this, you just work around this piece. And just like an earlier variation where the knight captures on d3, pawn recaptures, as soon as the knight takes on c2, what do we have? Yet again, an open c-file. And this is only going to be good news for white. Okay. If the knight goes to g4 in this position, I believe this was the really the other move that was being considered by black here rather than the capture on c2. Here's how you can respond to knight g4. You step up with the king, and if black goes in for knight captures e5, it says you could take the bishop and then take the knight, or even take the knight straight away. Yes, this knight falls, but look, in the end, white is pretty much playing with every piece. And how are you responding to the check? You go here, that's going to sting. And if you go here, yep, white is playing with all pieces here. This is big trouble for black. You carry it out a little bit more. Rook f8, bishop f4, king d8, bishop f4 yet again, and pretty much knight here next, regardless of what black does. Even if the queen defends this square, you still jump in here with check. You're on the queen, and you're on the queen yet again. So, not a good line here for black to insert this check at this stage on g4. We have instead king e7. Rook activity now. Rook h to e1. Rook f8. And another pop quiz. How would you respond here? Pause the video if you'd like. Okay, top response here. More material being invested. Not a whole lot more. We have an exchange sacrifice, removing black's best piece, the knight. Knight and pawn versus rook imbalance. Queen now under fire, and bishop g5 is nearby. Black sensing the danger, sensing the power now of bishop g5, gives some material right back with rook captures knight. Here's the thing. If queen captures b2, there is this check, and you would have to block with the rook. And from there, it's saying first save the rook, and next up, you're ready to take the rook, maybe even insert a check first, and then take the rook. Here's the thing. If you step up with the king, bishop c4 is checkmate. These minor pieces cover a lot of ground. Okay. Black's response at this moment here. Rook captures knight, and it's the king that does the recapturing. Why the king? You could look at it from a structural standpoint, but this is more about, hey, I want this f-file to remain open. There is a way to potentially coordinate with that dominant knight on f7. So it's the king that does the recapturing. Queen now finds a new home, swipes a pawn. Bishop g5 check. King e6 is played here. If the king goes to f8, this final piece can now play a role on the open f-file. These four pieces, and maybe even the king in some cases, can play a role in weaving a checkmate. To demonstrate, first of all, there's a serious threat now after rook f1 to move the king to, let's say, g4, discovered check, king g8, bishop c4 check, followed by rook f8, checkmate. Now, how might black try to interfere with this idea in this position? Well, if you, let's say, control that c4 square, there's bishop captures h7, and now there's 5 different checkmate in ones. Discovered checkmate coming up. If black tries to make a run for it in this position, you will not run far. There's a check, followed by king g4. What are you doing about the mate in one threat? A queen check, king h5, another check, king h6. There's nothing holding up the eventual rook f8 checkmate. Completely backward development there. Remains another path here. If you create a flight square, here's a nice mating sequence. King here, knight f7 is checkmate. And if the king steps up, we have this check, followed by King h5. There's no getting at this king. Queen totally out of position. Next up, bishop g6, checkmate. If you try and defend that with queen c2, the other path for checkmate there is with check. You would have to go to the corner, and then you get to land knight f7 for mate. One final line, g6, you take the pawn with check, and yep, the king assists in this mating net. Beautiful lines there. Okay, in this game, the decision by the black king at this stage here is to step up, stay off of this f-file. Follow up, rook e1, e5 defended, bishop c4 is checkmate next. b5, follow up, bishop f5 check. Now, if you capture this pawn, black is winning. It's a poison pawn. Take that pawn, there's a check here, knight takes, there's queen captures bishop. There's also a rook f8 check, no thank you. Not interested in this pawn. What white is interested in is this rook. We have a check on f5. Only move. King d5. Bishop e4 check. And from here, king e6 is played in, the rook falls next. If king captures pawn, we wouldn't have bishop captures rook just yet. Bishop captures rook, there's king captures knight. You would first save the knight with check, and only then take the rook. Okay, in this game it is king e6, the rook falls, and white is completely winning here. What are we looking at? Knight, octopus, knight, dark square, bishop, and rook versus queen, and still a problem here for this bishop. Some silly checks are inserted right around here. It's really going nowhere. There's just one active piece, and it is easily worked around. Bishop e4, queen d1 check, king g3, queen h5, and after move 29, h4, black resigns. What are you supposed to do here as black? If the game continued, I mean, the bishop is hanging here. If you don't want to make a completely silly looking move, let's say you play in a more active fashion. Let's test out this one first. Here's how you can play. Bishop f5, check, king d5, and bishop g4. This kicks the queen to a more vulnerable square. g6, the only safe square. And this would be a great moment to now collect this bishop that has done nothing for the entire game. And there is no time to get the piece back due to a fork right here. One final line in this final position here, if black moves the bishop to a6, talk about an evil move. There's more than one winning path, but I love this one right here. Bishop c2. Why is this being described as evil? There is a checkmate in one threat, and white has taken away one of the few remaining safe squares from the black queen. This is the only safe square currently, and if black wants to parry the mate threat, let's say trying to run away, you could play king h3, and there's nothing stopping this follow-up g4, and the queen is officially squashed. These minor pieces, rook, completely dominating the queen here. Okay, move 29, h4 as far as we go here. Fantastic game by Harikrishna. Your thoughts with this one? Feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.